Good morning, Durham Public School staff and employees. We want to welcome you back to the part 2 of the Take 10 Financial Fitness Summer Boot Camp. This is being hosted by My Financial Answers. We do this in cooperation with Verity Management Services and Amy Simonson. Today we have the second part, which is debt management and student loan forgiveness programs. And I want to turn it over to Ben Pitts, and he will introduce our presenter for today and himself as well. I want you to enjoy your day and hope you get a lot out of this part 2 of the boot camp. Have a great day.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you for having us host this webinar today. Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Pitts. I'm the CEO of My Financial Answers. Hopefully, many of you joined us last week for our first installment of the Summer Financial Fitness Boot Camp. And today, we're going to go through our second iteration of this, debt management and student loan forgiveness. I have so enjoyed working with Durham Public Schools. We appreciate you all joining us. Our desire is that each of you has the tools and the resources that you need to be financially well and get on your path to retirement readiness. Today you'll hear from a financial planner, our lead financial planner in our team, Rebecca Iacopelli. We call her Becky, and I'm going to turn it over to her for the presentation. I will be back for some questions and answers. We just ask that you all would ask questions. There is a box to ask questions. We also will ask some poll questions, so we'll keep it engaging, and we ask you to participate in that as well. So with that, Becky, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Ben. So welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to get started with you. My name is Rebecca Iacopelli. I'm a certified financial planner here at My Financial Answers. As I mentioned before in our last webinar, I've been working in this industry for around 7 years, working with wealth management, investment management, and tax as well. So I'm looking to help you all secure a fit financial future, and that's what this webinar is supposed to do, and so we hope you get as much out of it as possible. So with that, I'll start presenting the webinar. Okay, so welcome to the Financial Fitness Bootcamp, which is week 2, which as mentioned before is debt management and student loan forgiveness. We hope you were able to tune in for last week's webinar, which was maximizing your cash flow, and we hope you're well on your way in implementing those recommendations, building a budget, and finding ways to save for your future. In this week's session, we'll discuss ways you can manage your debt, as well as review the student loan forgiveness program available to you. And in next week's, we'll look into understanding your risk score and how we should position ourselves for investment management. So for anyone in debt, it can feel like a heavy burden that really weighs you down day in and day out as you worry about how much you owe and how much you are going to be able to pay it back. 1 in 10 adults, they say they carry a credit card balance of over $5,000. If you paid a minimum balance of $150 on a $5,000 balance with a 20% interest rate, you wouldn't pay off this debt for over 18 years, and you would have paid over $10,000 after all is said and done, as opposed to the $5,000 you originally owed. High interest rates, they can really creep up on you faster than a freight train and dig you in a seemingly ever-deepening hole. But our goal is to stop this vicious cycle and to bring you above water, able to conquer your debt and ultimately save for your future. So to do that, we're going to review 10 ways that you can manage your debt. First and foremost, the best way to manage debt and the only way to get out of debt is to stop acquiring new debt. Hopefully you learned some helpful tips from the last webinar in terms of building a budget to be able to find ways to stop living over and above your means. But a key takeaway is the need to live below your income. If not, you will find yourself on an endless cycle of paying down debt and building new debt, which pays thousands in interest and not being able to save for your retirement. A great way to determine how your budget should be structured is by using the 50-30-20 rule. By following this, as we mentioned in our last webinar, just to reiterate, 50% of your income can be used for needs such as housing costs, transportation, insurance, groceries, and so on. 30% of your income can be used for wants. These are extras and luxuries that we don't need, but we do want, such as eating out, drinking with friends, and recreational activities. Lastly, 20% should be used for building your future. That would mean saving for your emergency fund, paying off debt, and saving for retirement. The most important area to recognize and the hardest reality to face is the difference between wants and needs. This bleeds into our discussion about budgeting last week, but is worth reiterating as it is the most difficult thing to do. We don't need the luxury car, the expensive purse, or the fancy vacation. There are basic and even nice versions of these that are much less expensive and would not require us to incur any more debt. Ultimately, if you can't pay cash for it, you really shouldn't be buying it. If you can't pay cash for it, then simply you can't afford it. Frustrating and difficult it may be, but it is simple. If you have room in your budget, by all means, save up for the purchase over time. Saving up will allow you to pay in cash when the time comes and stop you from going into further debt. Patience and self-control are the order of the day when it comes to putting this into practice, but you will certainly be thankful to not have the burden of debt as well as the high price to pay for that debt. Number 2, we want to make a list of our debts. This may seem basic and you may think you're on top of them, but to gain a better perspective on your debt and to stay organized, it's important to make a list. You want to know how much you owe, to whom you owe it to, and at what interest rate. For credit cards specifically, the average credit card holder has at least 4 cards. You may have a few different stores that you frequent, like Target, Ulta, or Macy's, some for travel rewards and some for cash back. You may have cards you completely forgot that you have and may still be holding a balance. And pretty much 100% of clients I talk to do not know the interest rates on their credit cards. One of the most important pieces of information in order to start getting a handle on your debt is the interest rate, as it has an impact on what you should pay first. If you don't know it, take a look at your credit card statement. It will be listed on your statement. So take a statement from each credit card you have and write down the interest rates in your list. This will help us later in our discussion. You may also have auto loans, student loan debt, and a mortgage. Include these on your list of debts. And just as with credit cards, find out the interest rate and list it next to the balance. Once you have your list, you can sort it by one of two ways. Sort by highest interest rate or lowest amount of debt owed. We will see a little later the difference between the two methods of paying down the debt. But the first step is to make the list. One way to save money now and in the future is to make payments on time. Even if you are making the minimum payment on your credit card, pay this amount on time. This includes any other debts you have, such as auto loans and mortgages. Late fees will be slapped on top of the amount you owe if you are not paying on time. These can certainly add up. Not only will there be late fees, but on your credit cards, your interest rate will increase if you do not pay on time. We really do not want this happening. Another impact of not paying on time is negative impact on your credit score. Credit scores can drop to the floor very quickly when payments are missed or balances go to collection. A bad credit score can set us up for a future steeped in further debt. If we have low credit scores, next time we need a car or a house, we will be paying sky-high interest rates. This can increase our payments significantly and make it that much more difficult to pay for our basic necessities. Our bills will add up and we will need to incur further debt, plummeting us into a difficult hole to crawl out of. Credit scores also take a lot of time to build back up. A few on-time payments, that will not do the trick. Years of building credit can be ruined quite quickly, and it will take years to build it back up. So staying on time with our payments is of utmost importance. With credit cards, you can often change the date due. That way you can align the due date to be right after getting paid, ensuring you will have the funds to make the payment. Now let's discuss the difference between good debt and bad debt. Not all debt is bad, like the credit card debt we've been discussing. Good debts would include your mortgage, student loans, and sometimes auto loans. These debts increase your overall net worth. If you buy a $200,000 house and have a $160,000 mortgage, then your net worth is $40,000. Whereas in the case of bad debt, you have a credit card with $10,000, then your net worth is a negative $10,000. There is no asset to back it up. These debts can also improve your credit score, the good debts. It can build it up by showing you have multiple types of loans, which is a positive for your credit score. Good debt has significantly lower interest rates than bad debt. The importance of the lower interest rate cannot be overemphasized. What this does is allow you to save for your retirement. Instead of paying extra towards your mortgage and auto loans, pay that extra to yourself by saving for retirement. If you're making 8% in the market and only paying 4% on your mortgage, then you are making an additional 4% by maintaining that loan and allowing for money to grow in retirement. On the other hand, if you are paying 20% on your credit card and making only 8% in the market, well, then you're behind 12%. This is often the case for bad debt. Bad debt includes credit cards and personal loans, and sometimes auto loans. There is a debate over whether auto loans are good or bad because they have both good and bad qualities. On one hand, your car depreciates quickly or decreases in value quickly. But on the other hand, it allows you to get to work and to increase your net worth by providing income, and sometimes interest rates can be low if you have good credit. High interest rates on an auto loan, though, would be a bad situation, but a poor credit score is likely the cause. Credit cards and personal loans, they add no value to your financial situation. They are the product of things that you could not afford and only decrease your overall net worth, hence the reason it's bad debt. These types of debt we want to pay off as quickly as possible. The high interest rates are extremely costly and can extend our payments for years. We want to pay extra towards these debts if possible, or get them into an interest rate range that is low so that we can get our money into retirement as well. Next, we will get into how to pay off these debts and in what order. There are two different strategies for paying off debt, and it largely depends on the type of person that you are and what will motivate you to keep going. This is where keeping that list we mentioned previously is so important. It is from this list of our debts that we can begin to conquer them one by one and do so with a method that fits us best. First, there is debt avalanche. This is the method of paying off debt that has the highest interest rate first. This is going to save you the most money in the long run due to the highest interest rate being cut down as quickly as possible. The highest interest rate debt, however, may not be your smallest debt. So it may make you feel like you are not having an impact because you still may have a few smaller debts out there that may be easier to knock out and would make you feel more accomplished. This is the basis of the debt snowball. In this strategy, you pay off the smallest balance debt first. This can help you stay motivated as it will knock things off your debt list quicker and leave you with a large debt at the end. It's personality that has an impact in which strategy you choose. If you realize the economic value of the debt avalanche and feel as though you can stay motivated regardless, this is the one for you. It saves the most money, and that will be great for you in the long run. If, however, you have trouble sticking with a program for paying off debts, you may want to choose debt snowball. It's more important that the debt is paid off than to lose steam. So let's look at the economic difference between the two strategies. Here we have a $15,000 balance with a 20% interest rate and also a $10,000 balance with a 10% interest rate. And we are going to be paying $1,000 a month towards this debt. If we went with the debt avalanche, we would be paying the $15,000 debt first because it has the highest interest rate. Doing so would leave us paying a total of $29,978 between the two, and we would do so in 2 years and 6 months. On the other hand, if we use the debt snowball method, we would be paying the $10,000 debt first because it's the smallest amount. In this case, we would pay a total between the two of $31,366, and this would be done in 2 years and 8 months. So there's not much difference between the two, only $1,388 and an additional 2 months, but that still is something. This is especially why it is a personality choice. Avalanche saves more money in the long run, but ultimately we want to start down a path we are most likely to stick with. Start making your list of debts in the order you want to conquer them and get started with tackling that debt. An important area to keep an eye on when dealing with debt is your credit score. Oftentimes, being loaded down in debt and missing payments can put our credit score in free fall, and it is a difficult road to get back to a reasonable number. Be patient because it can take a while to get your credit score ticking up, but sticking to a plan and following some tips can help us on that road. The benefit of improving your credit score is the low interest rates you can receive on future purchases or even refinances. If you want to consolidate debt, which we will discuss next, a good credit score will allow you to consolidate your debt at a low rate, making it much easier to free yourself of the debt and cost you significantly less money overall. First and foremost, make your payments on time, as we discussed before. 35% of your score is attributable to payment history. One late payment can drop your score as much as 90 to 110 points for a score of 780 or higher. And these late payments can stay on your report for 7 years. Even one can drastically impact your score, so be sure to stick with your payment plan and even set your bills on automatic payment. This way it can't be missed. Next, 30% of your score is based on the balances versus the credit limit. It's called credit utilization. You should be only using under 30% of the credit limits available to you. So you can pay down the higher utilization cards first to see an improvement in your score. 15% of your score is based on the length of your credit history. The creditors want to see that you have been in the game for a while and that you are making payments on time over the course of your history. Get started as soon as possible with at least opening something simple, maybe like a department store credit card to get you started. And don't close unused credit cards. Simply shred them and throw them away if you don't want to use them anymore. The period of time you've had your old cards helps your credit score. 10% of your score is based on the different account types that you have. Having an auto loan, a credit card, and a mortgage can help improve your score. This shows that you are responsible with your credit and managing multiple accounts. Lastly, 10% of your score is based on new credit inquiries. Keeping the number of inquiries down as close to zero as possible is ideal. Of course, sometimes you will need to have an inquiry if you are buying a car or a house, but signing up for multiple credit cards in a few months is not going to look good on your score. Overall, improving your credit score can open up new doors for your financial future. Keep in mind that it is faster to fall than it is to grow, so really take it seriously and be very careful when it comes to damaging your credit. Now let's look into debt consolidation. This is a great place to start in order to lower your interest rate and make your debt payments more manageable. If you have a host of credit card or high interest auto loans, perhaps the best first step is to look into debt consolidation. The goal here is a lower interest rate. A bad credit score may make it difficult to find a lower interest rate, so determine what your options are before making any decisions. Use the list of your debts to compare the interest rate options. With debt consolidation, all you have to focus on is one payment as opposed to the multiple you have with different cards and loans. This can help you to be more disciplined with making the payments in full and also making them on time. Given this benefit, it leads to another perk, which is a higher credit score. Being able to make your payments on time, given a lower interest rate and one payment, your credit score will tick higher. Ways that we can consolidate our debt include balance transfers, home equity loans, and personal loans. A balance transfer would be the first go-to if you can qualify. A balance transfer offers 0% introductory rate for a period of time, which is typically 12 to 18 months. If you believe you can pay your debt down in this time frame, this is really the perfect solution. The 0% interest rate is otherwise impossible to come by and certainly something to take advantage of. As with all debt consolidation, there is a fee that comes with a balance transfer, usually around 3% of your balance, which really pales in comparison to the 15 to 20% you're paying on your cards. Also available to consolidate your debt is a home equity loan. This will provide the next lowest interest rate available. With an interest rate average of 5%, you can take out equity from your home to pay down your other debts with higher interest rates. This payment will be in addition to your regular mortgage, and it is of utmost importance to be paying both on time and in full. The caveat to a home equity loan as a means of paying off your debt is that your house is used as collateral. Unlike balance transfers or personal loans that have no collateral, in the case of a home equity loan, your house could be put into foreclosure if you don't make the payments. So be certain you can afford the monthly payment before entering into a home equity loan. Lastly, there are personal loans. These have a higher interest rate, around 10% on average. These will allow for one payment as all the others and have a fixed interest rate that will create a fixed payment easy to fit into your budget. If the interest rate you're offered is lower than your credit cards, then this is a possible option for you. Overall, we want to compare your options to what you're paying now in interest based on the list of debts that you have made and decide whether to begin the process of applying for debt consolidation. Another option when it comes to managing debt is refinancing. Interest rates are at historical lows at this point in time, making it an ideal time to refinance. You could consider refinancing your home or auto loans that may have had a high interest rate if you purchased them years ago when interest rates were higher. For example, on a $200,000 mortgage, lowering the interest rate from 6% to 3.5% can give you an extra $300 per month. Hence, benefits from refinancing include first and foremost lowering your interest rate, lowering your payment, and the ability to extend the term if your budget is tight. Having a lower interest rate alone without extending the term can lower your payment, but additionally, you can also extend the term. Extending the term increases the amount of time you will pay for the loan, and with that also increases the cost of interest as you will be borrowing for a longer period of time. However, if you lower your costs on low interest debt, you will have more in the budget to pay off higher interest debt, which would be beneficial. There are, of course, closing costs involved in refinancing, so it's important to calculate the cost to see if it's worth the difference in interest rates. Another option for paying off debt is a cash-out refinance. Cash-out refinances allow you to have new mortgage terms while tapping into the equity in your home and pulling out the cash. It is similar to a home equity loan that we talked about in that it provides cash, except that it typically has a lower interest rate and also is only one mortgage as opposed to two. A home equity loan is a separate payment, whereas a cash-out refinance is redoing your regular mortgage. Of course, there is the same risk of foreclosure as home equity loans if you can't repay, unlike with credit cards. So it is important to make sure that you have actually changed your habits and will not continue accruing debt before doing anything with your home. Next, we might have to make some difficult decisions if our debt is too much to bear. Those hard decisions include downsizing on our house or our cars. You may have bit off more than you can chew when it comes to your assets. It's never too late to make the jump and downsize to ensure you can afford your monthly expenses without going into debt. When it comes to calculating what is within the realm of reasonable for your cost of your assets, here are the standard guidelines. No more than 28% of your gross income, that would be income before taxes and deductions, should be spent on your total housing costs. Housing costs would include your mortgage, the taxes, homeowners insurance, and private mortgage insurance, essentially what you pay in your mortgage each month. Let's say you make $4,000 per month. 28% of that would equal $1,120. Your total mortgage payment should be no more than this amount. Also to consider is your debt to income ratio. This is where no more than 36% of your gross income should be going towards your debt payments. This means that the same person that makes $4,000 a month should spend no more than $1,440 on debts. That leaves $320 if you maximize your housing cost percentage. So in this case, this person may need to lower their housing budget to maybe around $900 to be able to fit in some debt payments that they might have in addition to their mortgage. A mortgage lender often uses this rule when determining how much house you can afford and how much they will let you borrow. But you need to be knowledgeable about your own finances because they may have a bias towards wanting you to have a higher mortgage than you should based on other debts that you might have. Keeping auto payments low is also very important. The luxury car may not be the option for you if you want to stick within these guidelines. $320, which was what was left over for a $4,000 a month individual, is on average a low payment for what I see when I'm working with clients. So you may have to opt for the less expensive vehicle in order to be in the realm of what is comfortable when it comes to cash flow. Driving the fancy car that might be fun, but not being able to breathe when it comes to your cash flow is not fun. We want to be responsible with the debt that we incur and make the hard decisions if we need to trim back our expenses. And this may include downsizing. Finally, we want to be able to balance our debt payments and our savings. We might want to put all of our money towards our debt, but this is often not the best course of action depending on your situation. First and foremost, we want to save for our emergency fund. Typically, an emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of your expenses and protects you in the case of a job loss, a medical expense, or a repair on your car. What this ultimately protects from is going into further debt because of an unexpected life occurrence. For many people who lost their jobs during COVID, an emergency fund would have gone a long way in keeping them afloat during these difficult times. So saving for an emergency fund is a great protection against deepening our debt, and we want to be sure to prioritize it. Next, we want to look into consolidating our high interest debt and lowering our interest rate. This can be done through the balance transfers, personal loans, and home equity loans, or even cash out refinances as we discussed before. Quickly lowering our interest rate is key to being able to manage our debt and actually being able to afford those payments. If we lower our interest rate to a reasonable degree, we can start saving for our retirement. This is an important step in building our financial future and ensuring that we have a happy, carefree retirement. Getting our debt under control is the first step to being able to have that happy retirement. So take these steps we discussed and start addressing your debt from the source. First, you need to stop the bleeding by adjusting your lifestyle and budget, and then begin lowering the interest rate on your debt. Finding payments you can afford will allow you to start conquering your debt, building your retirement, and pulling yourself out of the negative and into the positive. Now let's briefly discuss a program available to you through the federal government for forgiveness of loans through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. This is available to public service employees who work in public schools, nonprofit, and government institutions. This is an amazing program that should certainly be taken advantage of, but in order to do so, it requires some discipline. The payoff at the end is well worth the disciplined payments that need to be made, as the entire remaining balance of your loans will be completely forgiven and they'll be forgiven tax-free. In order to qualify for the program, you must have federal loans. Private loans will not qualify. And these loans must either be on an income-driven repayment plan, which is adjusted for how much you make, or on the 10-year standard repayment. The income-driven repayment plan is much more beneficial to you, and we will see why in the next slide. The program requires 10 years of payments to be made, or 120 monthly payments. These payments need to be paid on time and in the full amount that is set by your repayment program. During these 10 years of making the payments, you must be working full-time at a qualifying institution while you are making these payments. The problem is with the program is that it is quite complex. It requires diligence, and the paperwork is often quite cumbersome. Many borrowers enroll incorrectly and disqualify themselves from the program. Also, student loan servicers aren't very helpful when it comes to advice because it is not in their best interest to have your loans forgiven. They want the income provided to them by holding your loans. So we work with a company called Student Loan Tech that provides a full service completion of your paperwork for you so that you can ensure you are properly entered into the program and that you qualify. We'll provide a link in the follow-up email so that you can reference that company. Now let's take a look at an example of a client who qualifies for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program and what that looks like in terms of dollars and cents. In this case, they have an income of $50,000, which will be used to determine the income-driven repayment plan monthly amount. They have a total loan balance of $80,000 at 6% interest. On the 10-year standard repayment plan, they would be paying $888 per month. That's a steep payment. However, under the income-driven repayment plan, they would be paying $254 a month, a much more affordable payment and one we could certainly strive to fit in our budget if we move some things around and perhaps make some cuts to other things. Originally, they would have owed $106,579, including interest on the loans. However, with the income-driven repayment plan, they would only pay back $30,539 of that debt, and as a result, $76,040 would be forgiven. $76,000. That is a large amount of debt. What could you do with $76,000 if that was relieved for you? What you would hopefully choose to do would be invest those monthly payments that you no longer have to make and put that into your retirement. building up a solid nest egg to live off of in your retirement years. Saving for yourself is no doubt a better option than paying back on student loans if you can avoid it. It's so important to get started early with signing up for this program, and hopefully utilizing student loan tech to do so will make sure you qualify and get started with making the qualifying payments as early as possible. We want everyone to be relieved of as much debt burden as they possibly can. This is one major way we can get started in the process. If we work with this program in addition to all the other ways we discussed in paying down debt in the most cost-efficient manner, we are well on our way to crawling out of the hole of debt. So we hope you found this helpful and learned some insights that can help you on your journey to reducing your debt. We want you to have healthy retirements that aren't overshadowed by debt and result in stress-free living. Some adjustments may need to be made, but they are certainly worth your peace of mind and all of the money that can be saved as a result of putting those actions into place. One way to get started is to sign up for My Financial Answers. This is a financial planning tool available to you through your benefits program that allows you to build a financial plan for free and speak with an advisor to help you along the way. Please sign up with the link provided in the follow-up email and get started today with taking steps toward financial freedom and success. Well, we thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you join us for the next week's presentation, which is Understanding Your Risk Score, a look into investments and how you should be positioned in the market to achieve your financial goals. Now, please stick around for our live question and answers.
Awesome. Thank you, Becky. Great job. Hello, everyone. Ben Pitts here again. I'm going to MC our Q&A here. But actually going to kick off a couple of poll questions, but we really want you to stick around. We've already got some really great questions that have come in that we're going to address. But before I start the Q&A, I want to actually launch our poll questions here. So I just want you all to know that your answers to these poll questions are private, will not be shared with anyone. So we do encourage you to participate. We just want to show what the diversification is. You all are not alone in whatever your situation is. So this first question I'm going to ask is, how much credit card debt do you carry? I'm going to launch that poll question. The answers are none, $0 to $5,000, $5,000 to $10,000, and then above $10,000. So I'll give you a little bit to actually answer that question. All right, and some answers are coming in, and there's diversity all over the place. People are answering in every category that we show, and I want to be able to share this poll with you all. So just give me a couple more seconds here. When the answers slow down, we'll share it. Looks like it's a pretty even split as the answers come in here. Right. All right, going to give you 10 more seconds. Answer quickly. And then we'll go ahead and close the poll. So we have 2 more questions, then we'll jump right into Q&A. So I'm going to close this poll for now. And I thought I could, oh, there we go, share the results. I'm going to share the results of that poll. So we've got 23% of people say 0, none. 41% of people say 0 to 5,000. 16% of people say 5,000 to 10,000, and then 20% 10,000 or above. So we've got a diversity of answers here. So let's go ahead and ask our next question here. What is your credit score? I'm going to launch this poll question. I'm going to give you about 20 seconds to answer this question. So above 670 or below 670, 670 to 740, 741 to 850, or I do not know. All right, give you some time to answer this. And by the way, while we're answering this poll question, there was a question that came in about how can I access the last webinar. We will do 2 things. We'll make sure that the last webinar, the webinar we did last week on cash flow, managing cash flow, we'll make sure that that is sent out through Durham Public Schools. We were speaking with Paul about that this morning. We'll make sure that that goes out. And also we'll make sure that we include a recording in our follow-up to this webinar. So you'll receive the recording in a day or 2 here for this webinar. We'll make sure that we include the first webinar, so you'll get the entire series. And we do encourage you to listen to the next ones in the series. So I'm going to close this poll out since it looks like we've gotten all the answers here, and I'm going to share the results for our credit score question. Below 670, 19%, 670, 740, 27%, And you can see the rest there, 41% between 740 and 850, and we do have some people that don't know. So Becky, perhaps we can address how people can determine what their credit score is while we're doing the Q&A here. So one more poll question for you all. And how much student loan debt do you carry is our next question. So go ahead and launch that poll and select one of the following: 0 to 10,000, 10,000 to 50,000, 50 to 100,000, above 100,000, or 0, none. So go ahead and answer those, and that's our last poll question. Encourage your participation. Then we're going to jump right into this Q&A. Some really good questions. Please continue to ask questions. It looks like some are still coming in, and we'll do our best to answer every single question that comes in. So we encourage all questions. We'll do our best to answer those. So we're going to give it about 10 more seconds on this poll question. Still got some answers coming in here. Then we'll jump right into the rest of our Q&A. All right, looks like we're about done. So I'm going to close this poll out and share the results. So again, we've got a diversity of answers here. Some folks that have 0, about 26% of people have no student loan debt. About 18% have up to 10,000, and then a pretty good split between the rest. So Becca, we've got a diverse group of people on the call when it comes to their personal situations. We have a diverse set of questions that we're going to jump into now. So let me just get set up here. I'm going to hide those results, and I'm going to come back here, and we're going to start this Q&A. So Becky, we're going to go back a couple of slides. You were talking about good debt versus bad debt. We had a very specific question about medical bills, and I'm assuming medical debt, people that may have accrued some debt with a hospital system or some healthcare provider. Would you consider that good debt or bad debt?
Yeah, so I would consider that bad debt because that's not adding any assets to your net worth. So it's not increasing your overall value. It's just decreasing your value because it's something that you have to pay back and it was for a service. Fortunately, with medical debt, you can often negotiate a deal with the provider and pay. It's usually 0% interest and just make payments over time. Maybe the minimum is like $25 or $50, and you can make those payments over a period of time and at a 0% interest rate. So it's worth not having to pay that all off at one time because of the fact that you have no interest to pay.
All right, thank you, Becky. Yeah, we all have realities that we're dealing with, and we want to deal with them the best way we possibly can. Just one quick question that came in: who should the follow-up come from? And I believe the follow-up will come from the same email address that actually sent you the invite for the webinar. But again, we'll make sure that we work with Paul to get an email out through Durham Public Schools directly as well. So just look for the GoToMeeting follow-up that hosted this event. Okay, another question here, Becky. If you have several charge cards or credit cards, should you close some of them after they are paid off? Should you close those cards after they've been paid off?
Yeah, so I would say no to closing out those cards. So we want to keep our credit history open as much as possible because that's a significant portion of our credit score. What we can do if we want to get rid of the temptation of using those cards is we can simply just shred them up, cut them up, throw them in the trash. Then we'll never have to worry about them again instead of actually closing them out, because that does have an impact on our credit score.
Awesome. All right, some really good questions here. Does financial aid consider liquid assets versus property? So I guess we're going a little bit outside of debt here. If someone's planning on covering the cost of college for their kids, any sense of how someone's assets are considered, cash versus property? We can follow up with that one, Becky, if you're not prepared to answer that one, but and I can give a sense of that as well.
Yeah, I'd say I would follow up with that. I would have to look into that further.
Yeah, I will say in general, financial aid will certainly consider, the assets of a parent, and I guess scrutinize, for lack of a better term, assets that are in a child's name more than a parent's name. But to the extent that you can use cash to pay off debt and have value in property, those assets will be excluded from assessments for financial aid. That being said, we want to make sure that we do have money for emergencies, and ultimately student aid packages also include consideration for what someone's income level is, and other factors. So we can have you can address a question like that with your advisor, and we can look into your personal situation more for you. Question back to debt, Becky. Does 36% of total debt? I think you had mentioned a statistic. We shouldn't have more than 36% of our income going toward total debt. Does that include a mortgage? Does that include mortgage payments?
Yes, so that would include all of your debts, which would include mortgage, auto loans, and any credit card debts that you may have.
All right. All right. We have a good question here about the student loan forgiveness program. Does the public service loan forgiveness program also apply? Does it apply to plus loans? Do they qualify?
Yeah. So Parent Plus loans do qualify. There is a caveat when it comes to that. Oftentimes you have to consolidate your Parent Plus loans and then start making payments in that way in order for the payments to qualify for the PSLF program. So be sure to talk to Student Loan Tech. They can give you even further guidance on that. But yes, the Parent Plus loans do qualify. Important to keep in mind is that it's the parents who own those loans who have to be working for a qualifying institution, not the kids in that case.
Got it. Great. All right. Another student loan forgiveness question here. I taught at a Title I school, or more than one Title I school, over 10 years in a couple of different states. How can I apply for student loan forgiveness?
Yeah.
That is.
So I would recommend applying through Student Loan Tech. They will get all the paperwork sorted out for you, and they'll be able to complete that for you in a very efficient process. Otherwise, you can talk to your provider to get in terms of qualifying for the program and started with the PSLF program. But certainly, if you were making payments over the course of that time while you were in those schools, those would all qualify for your PSLF.
Yeah. We can also make sure that as a follow-up, you all can set up a meeting with our team to discuss whether or not you qualify for student loan forgiveness. We have an appointment that we can walk through that with folks at Durham Public Schools. So we'll follow up with that. All right, a bunch more really good questions. We want to try to get to all of them, so please stick around. Email come from, we already addressed that one. What is the best way to contact a financial advisor to schedule an appointment?
Yeah, so through My Financial Answers, if you log on to that website and you create an account, there's a schedule an appointment button that you can click on, and that will get you in contact with an advisor so you can discuss with them, and that service is free to you. So I would go to there first before anywhere else.
All right. So this is a pretty basic question here. I'm getting calls daily from a company stating that I qualify for student loan forgiveness and trying to get me to set up a new payment plan for them. They know all of my information and they're claiming to be from the Department of Education. How can you tell if it's a scam or not? Becky, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, and I can give my thoughts.
Yeah, so I would be skeptical over people that are giving you phone calls. Oftentimes, if the Department of Education or anybody is going to contact you, they will contact you through letters in the mail. Typically, government institutions go through the mail, not through the phone call. So I would be really hesitant to go forward with that. And if anything, get in contact with your loan servicer to make sure that those calls are legitimate.
Awesome. I would agree with that. So at least somebody trying to market some program to you, and I would always be skeptical. So Becky, do you know if there are any other student loan forgiveness options for people who are not in public service? For example, our spouses, for folks that are on this call. Any ideas on that?
No, not that I'm familiar with, unfortunately.
Yeah, me either. Is the website to sign up myfinancialanswers.com? I'll take that question. So myfinancialanswers.com, we are My Financial Answers. That is our website. However, Durham Public Schools, you all have a specific link that we will share as a follow-up to this presentation where you should sign up. It's actually dps.myfinancialanswers.com, but we need to get you the specific link to sign up. So again, we'll follow up with that. So a couple more questions here. Using this site, I get use of the service to look at my loans after I enter my information, correct? So I think that question is about using My Financial Answers. And I'll just take that. As you build out a financial plan on My Financial Answers, it will build out your balance sheet, and it'll show you your assets and your liabilities, and you'll be able to see those in a picture that most people have not seen before. Just seeing a balance sheet, sort of like a business would look at a balance sheet, and you'll be able to see that, and we can update it over time, and you'll see how that changes over time. How does your net worth change as you use the service and interact with advisors around the service? From a student loan tech perspective, Becky, is there any dashboard if somebody signs up for student loan forgiveness where they can monitor what their, how their balances change over time?
Not that I'm familiar with the student loan tech. What we do show you from the outset is the picture that you saw on one of those slides, which shows the analysis of what you qualify for. I can provide that if you get in contact with me to see if you're eligible for the program. Other than that, I'm not sure that they give you a balance over time. That would be through your loan provider.
Yeah, and one of the resources we talked about last week was mint.com. There are certainly tools out there that allow you to monitor your balances on credit cards, mortgages, bank accounts. Mint.com is one of those, probably the most well-known tool to monitor in real time how your balances are changing over time. It's also a tool that we mentioned that can help you manage cash flow. So if you're looking for something that you can actively see your balances change on a daily basis and have a tool on your phone or on your laptop or desktop to monitor that, mint.com would be one tool that you can use for that. So someone says they're having trouble understanding what goes where on the online profile. I'm assuming that's referring to My Financial Answers. If someone's having trouble, you can set up an appointment. Again, we'll follow up with you all with a link to schedule an appointment with an advisor, and we can walk you through how to fill My Financial Answers out to help you do that. You don't have to do that on your own. Most people can put information in, but we always review that with people before we actually review the financial plan. So we'll share that after the call. How do we access our retirement account is a question here, Becky. I'm not sure if you have a link to that, but we can make sure that that's certainly something we follow up with.
Yeah, so actually through My Financial Answers, there's a tab that you can click on called My Benefits. And under there, you can access the link to your retirement plan provider, I believe is Prudential. There's a link to that, as well as a link to Orbitz, which is your pension program. So there's both of those links, and they're under the My Benefits tab in My Financial Answers.
Awesome. Thank you, Becky. Any examples of what good debt would be, any good debts would be outside of a mortgage?
Outside of a mortgage, student loan debt is actually considered to be good debt, and the reason for that is because it provides additional income for you, so you can build your net worth over time. So a mortgage and student loan debt would both be considered good debt.
Or perhaps even children that might provide for you in the future if you're funding their college efforts. I would add to that, business loans are those of probably folks on the call who have family members that are entrepreneurs, and sometimes businesses require taking out a loan, and that's one way to increase or create income as well. So how can you find out how much we owe, especially when things are turned over to collection companies? So I guess this is a question, Becky, about how do we get a full grasp of what our debts are when there are, maybe it's spread out different companies and we're not necessarily all that organized around it.
Yeah, so the collection agencies, they're not going to be very good with providing you any sort of dashboard or anything like that. So you'll want to get in contact with them via the phone and call them and ask them what their balance is. When it goes to collections, you can also often negotiate. So I'd be hesitant to pay it all at one time. You can negotiate maybe for half the amount of your debt that you owed. So be sure to keep that in mind when you're talking to collection agencies.
All right, good. So someone stated they have not received any follow-up. Again, I guess I'd say a couple things. Make sure you're checking the email address where you signed up for the webinar to begin with. Also, check your spam. Make sure it's not going to your spam. And again, we'll make sure that we send the follow-up not only for this webinar, but the previous webinar, the recording through Durham Public Schools, to make sure you can get it to your DPS email address as well. Just a reminder to send a link to the loan forgiveness enrollment plan or the program So we'll make sure that we follow up with that as well. Seems like there's a lot of interest in that. Are there tax penalties, Becky, for student loan forgiveness? I was told by someone that it really is not tax-free.
It is tax-free. So there is no penalties for having your student loans forgiven.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay, so my credit card debt stays below $1,000. However, I have not paid it off in full, but I do make monthly payments. That is always greater than the minimum. So if someone has an ongoing balance less than $1,000, but paying the more than the minimum, is that okay, or will it negatively impact my credit score?
So no, it will not negatively impact your credit score because you are making those payments. The only way it would be bad for your credit score is if, say, you had that $1,000 balance, but you had, say, a $2,000 credit limit. So if you're using half or more of your credit limit, that doesn't look good for your utilization of your credit score. So it's important to keep that in mind. Maybe you want to pay that down before you pay other cards. But making the payments on time is the important part to keeping your credit score solid.
Okay. Okay, Becky, in the case of loan consolidation, once that consolidation occurs, are the consolidated credit cards closed? I guess, do they close automatically if those balances are consolidated?
So they're not going to close the credit card. They're just going to take the balances from those credit cards. So the credit cards will still be open. In some debt consolidation plans, depending on which one you choose, some of them actually stop you from taking on further credit. So you want to make sure you're aware of which type of debt management plan you're getting into. If you take out a personal loan, that's not going to be a problem. You're still going to be able to use your credit and apply for new credit. But if you go what's called a debt management plan, which is something typically for a lower credit score, that's going to limit your credit access. So you want to be sure to be aware of those things before you get into them.
Awesome. Okay, bunch more questions here, so stick with us, folks. Are cash out refinances still an option? Referring to cash out refinances for a home. I've talked to some folks that went to refi and were told that cash out refis were very hard to come by and qualify for.
Yeah, I mean, I actually know personally, my brother-in-law just had a cash out refinance not too long ago. So I know it is possible. Maybe some service providers are a bit stricter with that, depending on which one you go with. So I would say shop around a bit and see where you can get one and get one at a low interest rate.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I also know that they are still possible. Might come with a bit higher interest rate, and certainly your credit will impact what is available to you. What if you don't want to use a credit card, but the lender threatens to close the account because it is dormant? Should you make a small purchase even if you don't need anything, or just let it close and affect your credit score?
That's really up to you. I've actually never heard of somebody calling your credit card to say that it's dormant. But certainly you would, if you need something and it's actually something you need, I wouldn't buy something that you don't need. So certainly maybe buy a Starbucks or something on it and then pay it off. But it is important to keep those credit cards open. So I would say try to keep it open as much as possible.
Yeah, just make sure you pay off that balance. What happens if someone dies and you owe student loans? Will children be responsible for that debt? Any insight on that, Becky?
I'm pretty sure not, but I would want to do more research on the subject.
Yeah, I can give one quick answer. I have a twin brother, and his wife passed away about 2 years ago, unfortunately, and she had student loans in her name, and they both had student loans actually. And for certain loans, I believe it was the federally subsidized loans, her loans were actually forgiven. I believe all of the loans that she passed away with, and they were not passed on to her child. There are some different rules with private loans. So if you're going to consolidate your student loans and be a private loan through some private lender, you'll definitely want to consider what is the impact on what your options are post refinancing through some private lender. I believe that would have gone away for my brother who remained after his wife passed away.
I will just say that usually in those cases, it just comes out of the estate. So if you have maybe a house left over and that house is sold, the creditors are going to come calling. So they're going to charge that credit off of what you received in assets from maybe the sale of a house or something like that. So it would be subtracted from the amount that you would receive in your inheritance. I want to point out that If you are going to consolidate your student loans, don't do it with the private loans if you're going to qualify for the public service loan forgiveness program, because you have to have federal loans in order to do so. So consolidate through them.
Yep, there we go. Somebody says, yay, thank you. I'm not sure what it was referring to, but that's good. Does Student Loan Tech also assist with science, math, student loan forgiveness?
Yeah, so they'll assist with the, that's the teacher loan forgiveness program. That will allow you to have $17,500 if you're a math or science teacher, $5,000 if you are not, and they'll help with that situation as well.
Awesome. Got that. Okay. Still a bunch more questions here, probably 10 or so more. Do we have contact information for Student Loan Tech? Yes, we do. Again, you can set up an appointment with our team to review whether or not you qualify, and then if you do, you can go on to work with Student Loan Tech to implement those programs. Is it possible to transfer a child's student loan to a parent's loan after the child graduates? Becky, do you know if that's? I'm not sure what the context is there. But
so I would say, instead of trying to transfer, I'm not sure how you would go about doing that. But what you could do is just make payments for the child. So instead of having the child make those payments, you can make those payments. I don't think it can be transferred from child to parent.
Yeah, and perhaps that was so that you could get loan forgiveness for that loan. I don't believe that would work.
Yeah, that would not.
Loan forgiveness. So, do you have to teach a specific subject to qualify for the public service loan forgiveness program?
Yeah, no, you do not have to. So it's not even exclusively the teachers. So it's anybody in this school district would qualify for the student loan debt forgiveness. That you're referring to is the teacher loan forgiveness program, which is separate. That is specific to math and science teachers. Like I said, get $17,500. Other teachers get $5,000, but that's the cap to what they forgive. So really the best course of action is to start with the PSLF program first, because they're going to forgive your total amount of debt, not just a limited amount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think setting up an appointment, there are a lot of specifics. It is a very detailed program, and it's why Student Loan Tech exists, to help people through it, because there's a lot to sort through. So I would encourage you to set up a meeting to review that. I've been teaching physical education in Title I schools for 8 years. Is it worth taking the $5,000 exemption because I taught for 5 years, or continue to make the 120 qualifying payments? That's a good question.
Yeah, so I would, if you have to do the teacher's loan program and then also the PSLF, you're going to be paying for 15 years. So in order to get the best bang for your buck, starting the 10-year process would be beneficial, and that's only if you have loan balances above and beyond the $5,000. So if all you have is $5,000, then of course do it in 5 years, and it's relieved for you quicker. But if you have more than $5,000, you would want to start with the PSLF program, because then you'd only be paying for 10 years as opposed to 15.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of details here, so anyone that's confused like I am when I hear about these programs, make sure you set up an appointment. It helps to actually go through all the details and figure out which programs you qualify for and make an informed decision at that point. Is it recommended to take retirement money to pay for a house? I'm assuming that means a down payment for a home, to buy a home.
Yeah, so I would strongly encourage not to. Of course, we want to keep retirement in retirement. There's tax benefits to keeping it in the retirement plan. It grows tax-free, which is a great benefit. So not tapping into those resources would be most beneficial to you in the long run. Of course, there are some exceptions. If you have a Roth IRA, you can take out $10,000 without being penalized to pay for a first-time home purchase. That's only a first-time home purchase, not if it's your second or third. So there are allowances for that, but I would definitely recommend that to be a last-stitch effort.
So someone's asking, when will the link to My Financial Answers be available? Again, we'll make sure we follow up to this webinar with that link. And someone also said they'd had trouble with the website last week. If you all have trouble at all with the website, this service is a human service with the ability to build a financial plan online. So we'd encourage you to just set up an appointment. If you have any trouble at all, whether it's filling it out, figuring out how to get your inputs into the system, or just signing up in general, we will provide a link to schedule a call with an advisor, and we can walk you through all that. We don't want you struggling through using the technology. If you already consolidated a student loan, are you still qualified for the loan forgiveness program?
Yes, you are. So the only difference with consolidating your student loans is that it starts from the beginning. So once you consolidate, if you had made any payments before that time frame, those do not count. Only the counts is what starts from the consolidation and onward. But yes, as long as they were consolidated and they're still federal loans, they qualify for the program.
All right. Okay, 2 more questions and we're going to end it. We're right at the hour here, the half hour. For my husband's student loan forgiveness, they sent out a 1099-C that was considered income. I'm not sure what the question there is, so that may have related to a previous question. Is it possible to transfer a child's student loan? I'm not sure I follow that. If you send in a follow-up, a more detailed question, we could follow up later. Would it be possible for a future session to cover financial planning for estate planning? Is that something we are going to cover?
That's not something we're going to cover in this boot camp so far, but that is certainly something we can put in our suggestion box and make sure that we address for you.
Awesome. Well, that's actually all of our questions today. We again, if you have some last final questions here, feel free to put them in. We really appreciate you all joining. We hope you join us for this session next week and the 2 that follow after that. This is a series of 5 different topics in this boot camp. We'll make sure that everyone does get a link to last week's webinar and this webinar. We'll make sure that you have a link to sign up for My Financial Answers, and we encourage you all to sign up and speak with an advisor. It is free to you. You get this help through as a benefit with Durham Public Schools. So with that, we hope you all enjoy your summers. We hope you stay happy and healthy, and your families do it as well. We just plead with you to invest some of your time as you have today. So it's a great start to get on the right path financially. So with that, Becky, thank you very much for your time and going through this, and we will look forward to speaking with everyone next week. Thank you all.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Take care.